Hi, I'm Hazel and this is Steve. We're from Tinnitus Hub.
We attended the BTA conference and expo on the 14th to 15th of September, and these are our thoughts.
So Steve, what were your general impressions of the conference?
So I thought the conference was really good. There were a lot of clinical audiologists there. There were a lot of people really interested in understanding better how to treat tinnitus and wanting to understand what the latest innovations in tinnitus were that they could offer the patients.
I would say it was very cross-disciplinary. So there were people from academia, but also practitioners. There were neurologists, ENTs, audiologists, psychologists. So definitely very cross-disciplinary.
So I think the most exciting new thing I learned was around the Neuromod trial. So there's a lot of positive data from that, a lot of interesting information on bimodal stimulation. And the product's not far away from going to market, which again pushes the Susan Shaw's device for bimodal stimulation closer to the market as well, which can only benefit us as patients. So I think the other interesting thing as well about bimodal stimulation that was found in the Neuromod trial and will potentially get found in other trials as well for different ways of bimodal stimulation was that it was especially successful for hyperacusis.
So Steve, what did you do at the conference?
So I attended a few of the talks, but a lot of the day was actually taken up with helping the BTA to do some filming. So we went around and we basically grabbed a hold of people who were researchers into tinnitus and asked them a few questions, asked them about their research, about presentations they were doing, and just asked them a few key questions that people from the forum especially wanted to know. So the first talk that I attended was David Bagley's talk on hyperacusis, and I found that especially interesting because we had questions on the forum beforehand asking, was pain hyperacusis different to sound tolerance hyperacusis? And he highlighted some of the recent research by Richard Tyler where he put it into 4 categories. Now, they don't necessarily agree with each other on that, but it did show that hyperacusis is such a difficult thing to understand, and it kind of gives you a lot more insight into the mechanisms. And I always think myself about hyperacusis that I had at the start of tinnitus, that I don't necessarily class it as hyperacusis. However, it would fall into one of these 4 categories. So there's quite a lot of different experiences with hyperacusis that are really interesting to get David's insight into that in his talk.
So Raj Shekhawat talked about TDCS and how it can help to prime the brain for tinnitus management. So he found that hearing aids actually work more effectively and quickly against tinnitus after you apply this electrical stimulus to the brain.
There's other applications as well, especially with the high definition where you can actually target specific areas of the brain. So Hazel, what did you do at the BTA conference?
Yeah, so apart from attending many of the talks, I was also trying to interview as many people as possible, speakers at the conference, getting them in front of a camera and asking them questions that we solicited from the forum. So one of the questions we asked the interviewees is, will there ever be a cure? Now, the answers were all along the lines of, well, there probably will be, but it won't be one cure. There won't be a one-size-fits-all solution. Every tinnitus patient is different, and we'll probably end up with different cures for different types of tinnitus and different groups of patients. But overall, there was optimism that for most people, there will be treatment eventually.
Everybody seems to believe, due to the heterogeneity of tinnitus, that there'll be cures for different people, that we'll find a treatment that works or a combination of treatments most likely that works for an individual, and that tinnitus healthcare should really be centered around the individual for success.
So when I interviewed Roland Shater, he also stressed that before we can get to cure, we need to really learn more about how tinnitus works in the brain, what are the causes and mechanisms and pathways of tinnitus, and that will give us new leads that can lead towards a cure.
So one thing that I gained overwhelmingly from the clinicians and professionals at the conference was the need for compassion at the start of the experience. They said that so many people are getting sent away with just very cold, learn to live with it, go away. Now, having had tinnitus for so long, I kind of know that learn to live with it is what I have to do. Otherwise, what am I going to do? But the compassion and the understanding and the helping to say, look, these are the things that you may be able to do to manage it. Don't give up on a cure, but these are the things you can do in the meantime to help get back to normal life. There were over 200 people at the conference. Now, the vast majority of them were practicing clinicians from what I saw. There's some researchers, but mostly people at the front line of tinnitus care. Now, that was a fantastic number of people, but it also highlights just how few clinicians in the UK are trained and actually understand how to deal with tinnitus, and why most of us actually have a very negative experience of clinical care. Because we were quite busy at the expo, we didn't get to go to many of the talks or the experiences, but one thing that it did do was talk to a lot of people. So there was a lot of people there with tinnitus, and there was an awful lot of them who were struggling with tinnitus as well. And one thing I really picked up was that being able to share their experiences and talk about their tinnitus freely with other people who understood exactly what they were going through, it was very cathartic for a lot of people.
One of the things I noticed is that a lot of people brought their partners or friends with them, and they told me it's so useful to be able to bring them here and they can get the first-hand information so that I don't have to explain everything to them all the time, and it really enhanced the understanding of their loved ones about tinnitus.
So one of the things for me was that a lot of people were coming up to the stand and that we're talking to at the conference who had tinnitus, who hadn't been able to share with friends or family because they didn't quite get what they were talking about. And they would mention something, say for example, the tinnitus would go louder for 5 seconds, and we would say, oh yeah, that's fleeting tinnitus. We get it. It's quite normal. Well, normal for people with tinnitus, of course. And the relief was quite palpable. It was really interesting for them to get their experiences off their chest. So those are our initial thoughts of the conference and expo, but we took a lot of pictures and also videos, and we've also got a lot of footage of the expo and conference that we're going to share with you in the coming weeks.